But,
so that helps
yeah,
as well.
Yeah. How do you start your podcast? I'm not seeing enough of them, but I find that the first minute is so awkward. Like I cut it out, and I might send the clip with me and Kaya. But literally, I was like, the first 20 seconds, he's talking, I'm talking, and then it was like 20 seconds of that. And I was like, when I look at you, you're an amazing host. Like
Exactly.
you just feel like very welcoming. And
That's very
that's
kind.
that's the role of the host, right?
But that's the biggest compliment that you can give me. I think that sometimes I go in with literally like, oh bro, I saw this thing, or other times like, Assalamu alaikum, thanks for joining me. So I saw this thing. So I think, like, generally speaking, with conversation, it's okay to flow, but I think having a starting point is good.
Do you always have a question in mind at the start?
I like to have some kind of topic or something. Yeah.
I've always realized that the first minute, I have said the same line. Is that I know we've had a discussion before.
Oh yeah,
or something like that, and it's just I know it's cut out. And now it's just like I need to make it a bit more natural. But like we were saying, is that the job of the host is to try to make someone feel as comfortable as possible, so we can have a good discussion, right, and learn something from it.
You have to almost like make them forget that the cameras are there, which is a difficult thing to do.
This is why I put the mic here.
Yeah.
Because before I did sit here. I can barely see the guy.
But these mics are great. Like they can like do so much in post with these as well. So
So touching upon your initial question was that the purpose of it is just parenting. I want to talk, but more and more often now, the guests I'm getting we're always talking it from an Islamic context, and that is extremely relevant to me because obviously I'm a Muslim, and they hold a lot more weight to me when it's the fundamental and foundations are something to do with Islam or something the Prophet did or something that is entrenched in the Qur'an or the Sunnah. I think it makes me want to implement it more, and I know that it's not even in terms of a worldly way, but in the hereafter as well, there's going to be some sort of benefit.
Yeah, 100%. And at the end of the day, that's like Islam is a way of life. Right? I know it sounds so. I'm just put my phone on airplane mode. I know it sounds so cliche, but that is actually it. There's not an aspect of your life that has not been discussed from an Islamic perspective, either from the Qur'an or the Sunnah. So like the fact that that's the case, that shows that actually every single thing that you do in life must be driven by religion first. Yeah.
So the point of the podcast was, and I know we met a while back, and you sat down and gave me some advice, and I was just thinking about why I'm doing this, just so that there are days where I don't feel as motivated or editing every evening, and it can be difficult, but I need a good list of whys. And the main reason is the only thing that enabled me to get out of the hole I was in when I was younger was my kids. And by that, what I meant was before they were born, I had so many bad habits. So addicted to gaming, very unhealthy, not using my time productively. If I'm completely honest, not the best of husbands, and as soon as they were born, I don't know what happened, but just a switch flicked in my mind. And I don't know where it came from, but it just made me change. And that was the only thing that got me out of that hole. And don't get me wrong, I have a very, very good family, good support group of friends. I had so many people trying to sit and talk to me about, you need to change, this habit isn't that good, etc. And nothing ever worked. And the only thing that did work was when my son was first born. And that really helped me. And the first step was reestablishing the faith in terms of my salah and reading my Qur'an consistently, and then changing my health. And once those two were there, everything else fell into place. And unfortunately, it was a bit later on in life, and I felt like I wasted a lot of my youth, and I could have used it better. And I'm in a position now where, okay, I'm at a job, but I've got a wife and I've got kids, so a lot of my time has been taken away. So if I want to try to do something, it has to be in the evening. We'll have to sacrifice my sleep for it.
And you don't want to do that anymore?
I have to do that. I don't have a choice.
Right. Because but as in, like, this podcast could be a way out though as well.
Yeah, inshallah, it could be.
Inshallah. And
even if it isn't, then at least, even if no one watches this, my kids one day when they get older, they can watch it and think, okay, now my Eesa or Adam, they will be fathers one day, inshallah, and they may be lost. I may not be around. They can listen to these stories of other people and hopefully derive some benefit. Oh, this is what Faisal did when his kids were a bit younger, or my dad was doing this and trying to teach me delayed gratification in this way. Or when I was younger and when Eesa was first born, I was trying to read so many books. I love reading books, but like Kai gave a really good example last week. And he was talking about swimming. You can read as many books as you want about swimming, but until you don't get in the pool, it doesn't really make a difference. And this is why I've started this podcast, where I just try to get stories from people. They don't need to be scientists or experts.
Well, look, the thing is that the biggest issue nowadays with people who have ideas is that they don't execute them, they don't take action. So the fact that you've taken action is the biggest achievement of them all. There will never be a bigger achievement, no matter how, like, even if this podcast and inshallah gets millions of subscribers, there's nothing that's more of a success than the fact that you actually decided to take action. And most people don't do that. So I don't know why you did that, but I think like that in itself is such a commendable thing that you did.
Yeah. There was a video I put out a few weeks ago, and it was a bit controversial. Only later it came out. So basically, what I was doing is, like I was telling you, I don't want parenting advice just from a Muslim perspective. I'm trying to get it from different ways, and I love reading, and I like reading autobiographies. So I was reading the autobiography of Rockefeller, and the specific book is 36 or 38 letters from John D. Rockefeller to his son. So over the course of his life, at different aspects, things have happened, and he just writes a letter to his son, and he keeps it aside. And this book wasn't meant to be published to anyone. It was just private letters from him to his son, and they've compiled into a book. At that time, he didn't know it was going to be one. And every letter, there's something significant in there in terms of something's happened in his life. Let's say, for example, in the oil industries, he was doing something, he made a move or whatever, and then he talks about these are the lessons that he's derived from them. And I was just reading through all 38 letters, and I just thought they were really, really good in terms of just the things that he says. So there's simple things that we already know, like, but the way he talks it's very, very raw. Like, he'll call his business partners donkeys and buffoons, and I'm trying to be a bit gentle with the words here, but he's raw because he didn't think everyone was gonna read this book. He just thought, this is my son's gonna read this, and maybe he'll get some benefit from it, and he'll learn from the mistakes that he made. So anyway, I read this book, and I read it 2-3 times. It's not very big. You can read it in one weekend. And there was like 4 or 5 lessons, which I thought, and anything that I felt was compromising my faith, for example, when he's talking about banks and loans, etc., then obviously just read through it and then just move on. You don't need to like derive benefit from it. So the controversy was that a lot of people came to me later and said, oh, you know who this guy is or what he's done. And, he wasn't a very nice guy. And there's a lot of controversy, but I don't know what's true and what's not. The point I was just trying to make is that I feel that everyone has something to offer to the world, and as a Muslim, we take what's good and we leave the bad. Some people agreed with that, and many didn't. And I was just like, okay, interesting. Because for me, I just like reading books from everyone. Right now, I'm reading the founder of IKEA and just how he built his empire and that kind of stuff. Whereas a lot of people will just say, look, just read the biographies of Muslim people and not fan out to non-Muslim people. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've had a similar, as I also like reading books, and I'll read all types of books, and I've had a similar experience too. And so I'm first of all, I should like preface it by saying that I'm not a person of knowledge, and I think there is like an Islamic benefit to take, like when it comes to this kind of things, like where should you get knowledge and stuff like that. But what I will say is that yes, I also agree that if you can read something and you can take the good and you can leave off that which like doesn't concern you or doesn't relate to you because from a religious aspect, then there's some good in that. But I think there's a preface, which is that you have to be mature enough, intelligent enough, and have some sort of knowledge to know what to leave and what to take. And not everybody is like that. Some people are easily influenced. And so if you know that about yourself, then I wouldn't do it. So I think it's like case by case. So for example, I know that I have a very addictive personality. And so let's say, for example, if there was something that I know I could get addicted to, I just won't even like entertain it. The only thing I am addicted to is coffee.
Example.
Well, coffee is like an example, right? But that's like, that's the length that I'll go to. But I don't know, because the beautiful thing about Islam is that most things that are addictive, I guess, are impermissible, right? So I don't know, I don't know a permissible example, but I know that about my personality is my point. The good thing is I've never really been into gaming and things like that. But you could relate to paddle right now, right? Like we're all in on this paddle hub, but I can't become addicted to it. And so because I know that about myself, there's certain things I will and will not do in life. So if you know about yourself that you're easily influenced, then maybe don't read like the success stories of like people who you think that also have some negative. But if you are mature, disciplined, and you have knowledge in your field or the field of the book that you're reading, let's say, for example, you're an Islamic finance expert or finance expert, and you know that loans aren't right. Like, you know, so I think like you got to take it as is. But no, I also I've read books on creativity, productivity, and stuff like that aren't necessarily by Muslims.
And you can derive benefit from
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I think you can derive benefit from it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think one of my underlying goals, not just for this podcast in life, is to change the face of the educational sector.
Okay.
So I've always felt that.
Are we live on the podcast?
Yeah, we're live. Yeah. We've been live from, and
Okay,
I'll
fine.
edit and create.
No,
Don't worry.
fine.
It was about just the way that the education system is now.
Mhm.
I feel like it's very outdated. So the way that the schooling system has been, it's been around for the last 80 years. And today it doesn't make as much sense.
Mhm.
Like the students that we are trying to churn out from schools, they don't have the skills that they need to succeed in life anymore.
But do you think that's because there's a bigger reason for that? Like, surely, you know, people know that, but there's a reason for it, which is that they're trying to create employees, for example, and therefore
that's exactly the reason. Because the type of students they needed to graduate 80 years ago during the industrial age was people that would listen to instructions, working in factories, be employees. But today that's changed now. The world has changed.
Fine. Okay.
And I feel like we need to better equip our students. So I still believe that there should be something like a school, but the way we educate them should be different. The skills that they learn are different. Maybe even the subjects that they learn. So this goes back to like reading books. So I was reading a book on Elon Musk, and specifically I was like, let's say there's like 100 chapters. I might be focusing only on 5 because I was interested in the way that Ad Astra was built. Have you heard of Ad Astra before?
I think I've heard of it.
It's a school that he founded. Okay. So his kids used to go to a private school near where the factory was, but he just wasn't happy with the level of education. So he pulled them out and he got one of their tutors, and they just started a school together, and they called it Ad Astra Nova. And I was just reading about this school, about the philosophy that they were implementing, how they taught kids, and some of the things really stood out.
Like what?
For example, in our schools in the UK, everyone's aged by groups, group by age. So you're 7, 8, 9, 10. Everyone's the same age in the classrooms. Whereas in his school, it's more about the ability. So you can have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old in the same class. And therefore, it's not about how old you are, but rather just about your ability. So in Ad Astra, he had about 50 kids before the kids all graduated. And
is it closed now?
It's closed now, but the teacher that was part of that school, now he's made his own thing. So it's basically Ad Astra, but he's changed it a little bit.
Fine.
So they were grouped by ability as opposed to age. And that was very beneficial for the kids, because especially the younger ones, they learn really quickly. Like even as a parent, you'll realize that your first son may take longer to learn something like getting changed, eating his breakfast by himself, etc. When the second one comes along, he'll pick it up a lot faster because he's already got his brother to look up to, and he's already, my big brother's feeding himself or getting changed, I'm just going to do that. So whereas Eesa might have taken when he was 6 years old to get independent in that way, Adam is like 4.5 now, 4, and he's doing it already. Similarly, in the classroom setting, if you've got someone outside of the teacher to look up to in terms of what's expected, you're going to pick it up a lot faster. The second is they don't teach to the tools, they teach to the problem. And this is the biggest issue in education. By that, what I mean is in school today, you might go to science and you learn about biology, for example, and learn different fundamentals. Whereas in Ad Astra, they've got a problem. So the famous example is of an engine. You have an engine and you have to dismantle it. So what they'll do is they learn how to dismantle it. And while they're doing that, they'll learn all the different tools and what the tools are there for and how the tools function in relation to this problem. So they're not teaching to the tools, they're teaching to the problem. So this is the issue we need to fix. These are the tools you need to fix it. Whereas in school, in science, we learn about specific concepts, but we're not really applying them much to anything. So we might learn about the periodic table and all the different elements and what they do and where they're found, but what does that mean to me? Do you understand? And there were a lot of other things. So in those 5 chapters, there were maybe about 10 principles, which I really thought, wow, this is really, really good. And I wish I could implement that. And in my classroom, I will implement a few things. So for example, public speaking, debating. When kids do that, I just find that they just flourish. They love speaking. So there's really, really good videos. If you like Ad Astra on YouTube, there'll be like little problems for 1 or 2 minutes, and then you can show it to your class and then we'll just have a discussion.
Wow.
So for example, there's a really, really good one. It's called the pollution problem. So there's a city next to a river, and there's a big company, and the company is responsible for polluting the river. And then there's a whole host of problems. There's like 10 different people within this problem. And as a student have to pick, okay, who do we blame here? And then they have to think about all the different profiles, and then you make your own rationale, and then you argue and you debate, and there's no clear-cut answer. And that's a good thing. So yeah,
It's like a microcosm of parenting, isn't it? Because when you're a parent, you're learning on the job.
Yeah.
So you don't get you don't go to like parenting school, right? And so likewise, I think you're right. If you teach the entire education system in that way, it would be very useful. I actually went to a school where even though we were taught by age, like you mentioned, we had form, and in form every day our forms were not by age group. So there was people from year 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11 all in the same form.
Okay.
And I found that very beneficial.
What school did you go to?
Well, I'll tell you a fair.
Was it a private school?
No, it was a high school, but it had a really bad reputation, so they had to rebrand the whole school, and it became an academy. And so they introduced these new rules. And then I went there the first year, it became an academy, and so that was really good because our you get to see you're in year 7, you get to see year 11s, and you might even say ask some questions about certain things, and it was really useful. You get their help on homework.
Did you find it beneficial?
I did, yeah.
Did you find that there was like any bullying or anything?
No. It actually reduced bullying a lot, because if like someone from a bigger year would pick on someone from a younger year, that person in the younger year would know someone in that person's year, and therefore they could speak to them at form, and they could it was really useful.
That's
I think
really
it was
good.
amazing.
I've never heard a school do that before.
I think because they were an academy, they were allowed to make some separate rules.
That's why I asked. Yeah,
that was one thing that I found beneficial. And then the second thing is, in primary school, I was in a separate maths class. So when I was in like year 4 or 5, I was in year 6 maths, and I found that beneficial as well, because I felt like I was being challenged and things like that. So I got to experience pieces of what you were talking about. I don't know why, but just as you were talking about it, I remembered these things, and I thought you're right. There was a lot of benefit in those things. And I think you got to be conscious of being slowed down too much if you're a bit ahead of your class, and you got to be conscious of not getting enough or feeling too lost if you're a bit behind. But then one worry is would you be picked on if you're with year 3 maths still and you're in year 6, right? So I mean, I guess they wouldn't call it year 3 maths, but I think it also creates a whole bunch of problems as well, right?
Yeah. I don't think there's any one ideal solution.
Yeah,
but I think it's worth trying different things.
Yeah, you're right.
Because, and to be completely honest, everything I'm doing now is very selfish, because I know Eesa's growing up now, and I want him to be in the best school that I feel like he can be in.
How old is Eesa now?
He is 7.
Okay.
Yeah, and Adam is 4.
Okay.
So as they go older, I feel like in this country, the primary schools are great. I feel like they do what they need to do. The teachers are amazing. So I don't have no issues. I feel like as they get older, that's when the issues start.
But that will change, I think, because the guys who are in primary school now will end up going to high school. So
in terms of the level of education.
Okay.
Because in year 7, things get a lot more difficult, and they've already picked up now the arithmetic or English or writing skills, etc. Now we need to move on to the next stage.
Okay.
They already know how to write now and how to count, etc. Now we're moving on to more advanced skills that they need to pick up. That's the issue. But I think end goal would be amazing to start a new school.
Your primary subject that you teach at secondary school is what? English?
I do history. History, yeah. Right. So I've moved on to management now. So I still do teaching, but I do a little bit of management now. So I wanted to get that aspect of it, so I know how to deal with teachers, deal with people, really, because that's a big part of it. Look at the admin side of things, data, policies, this kind of thing. And the goal would then ultimately be to move to the next stage, just so I can see the school from a holistic standpoint. So if ever that dream comes to fruition, I'm in a good position where I could try to do as best as I can.
Well, you're in the best city in the world for it, I think, because things are private here. You could, in theory, there'll be a few hoops to jump through, but you could start your own school, couldn't you? So that'd be really cool, man. I'll be the first one to get my kids in that school. Yeah,
inshallah. That's the goal. But I think this is an offshoot, because I think what I want to try to do is align everything I'm doing in life.
Sure.
And therefore this goes on to it, because in the classroom and even in the UK, there's only so much you can help a student. And even though you want to really help them and try to be there for them, you can only be there for them while they're at school.
Sure.
And therefore, sometimes the issue isn't the student. The issue might be just the household they were raised in, or the parenting philosophies, or just parents. And this might be a way for me to try to access the other side of the equation. And maybe the parents can see it from that aspect. And at school, I'm teaching the students, and holistically, hopefully, it'll derive a bit more benefit. But the problem is now a few of my students have found that I've done a podcast.
Oh no.
So I'm walking around the school. Mr. Ganshi, how do you read like cookies?
Oh man.
So I'm trying to, but the kids are really, really nice, to be honest. But then they'll just go on, somehow they find it. And then once one kid knows, everyone knows.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
So now I feel like I'm getting like loads of likes and all these views in my videos.
With all your students.
So is there a way for me to stop that or not? But
that's really cool, man. So you're like educating the students in school and you're educating the parents on the podcast. That's really cool, man. Yeah,
that's the goal.
That is holistic by definition. Yeah.
That's the goal. Inshallah, like you said, it's about consistency.
Yeah.
I think initially there's like a lot of passion and you get really excited, and then sometimes it's just like, oh, I want to spend this evening editing.
No, man, look, you said it, consistency is the most important thing, and discipline is what comes in when you don't feel like you have the motivation to do it. And the thing that people, don't do is take action. The fact that you take action is in and of itself like the biggest success metric. So I think like you'll be fine, inshallah.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask you was, you sent out a video a while back, and maybe it was last week. I don't know. I just see your videos come up. And what I found really fascinating was the relationship between you and your brother.
Okay.
So I see your brother more often than I see you.
Yeah.
But I rang him, or was it a voice note anyway? And I was asking about something about this podcast. But then the video.
Can I just say that the amount of, even though you're belittling it, the amount of research that you've done, even if you haven't done a lot in volume, which you're saying you haven't done, but I think even that in itself, the fact that you're speaking to people that I know and things like that, that is volume. But anyway, the fact that you have even thought about, let me watch some of his stuff and see what coffee he drinks, and buying that exact coffee and then speak to his brother. That is incredible, bro. I think that's what's going to set you apart from others, where, Islam, it teaches ihsan. Allah says in the Qur'an, like, what is the reward of excellence other than excellence? And that is what you're doing. You're doing excellence by, going that one step further, and you're being like super prepared. So, even if you don't see it, I think like that's important. To give you your flowers for that. Okay, so what did my brother tell you?
No, he didn't tell me anything. It was just that the relationship you two have with each other, it's amazing. So let me give you a bit of background. That's amazing. But with the way I've grown up, it's the friends I've had, we always just roast each other 24/7.
Which is normal with
which is normal. Which is normal. And even obviously siblings as well. Yeah. Just normal. But I just found that like the way you guys are, when I spoke to him, you guys were just, when he was talking to you, it was like you were his best friend. And that's just different. It's the dynamics. It's just amazing to see. How do you think that was created at home? Because I know you mentioned something in one of the videos about your mom and the way you spoke to each other, but I wanted to delve a bit more into that.
It's entirely our parents. So first of all, as much as normal as roasting your friends and your siblings and stuff is, we've never roasted each other ever, me and my siblings, and neither have me and my friends actually, because if I have had that relationship with a friend, I've just not been friends with that person because I don't have time for it. I don't think that it's a healthy relationship. And actually that goes back to the sunnah where, somebody said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but you make jokes. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, though he made jokes, he wouldn't make jokes that were lying or at the expense of others. And so I think that's a sunnah, and unfortunately we have fallen into that in society because it is funny short term, but actually it can hurt people's feelings. And they might like think about it a bit. Like you might go like someone, oh, like, don't you want to wear a looser t-shirt so like, you can't see your belly? Like, oh, that's funny. And the person might go home and be like, you know what? So that means that whole time, like these guys have thought I was fat, and it might affect them, right, and hurt them. So I think there's no space for it personally. But interestingly, so I'll tell you a bit about the parenting style of my parents, because when I put that video out, it garnered a lot of attention, and the most common question was, well, then how did your mom discipline you? Because it seems like I had a bit of a oxymoron in that video, because I said my mom, our upbringing was very relaxed and it was not strict. And then I was like, my mom had some red lines and we've never even said shut up to each other. So what I was basically saying in that video is that me and my siblings, we've never said shut up to each other. We've never said be quiet to each other. We've never had a fight. And we've never rolled our eyes at each other and stuff like that. But we had a really relaxed upbringing. So here's how it was. My mom was very stern, and she had some red lines on just a few different things: foul language, rudeness, essentially rudeness, right? So like you had to have manners. I remember a sentence that she'd always say when we were driving to somebody's house or going somewhere. She'd be like, "Don't, all right, guys, we're going to someone's house. Don't act like Janwar," right? Which like in Punjabi Urdu means animals, don't act like animals. So I now say that to my kids. I'm like, "Oh, guys, don't be Janwar," right? So that these are kind of principles, like just manners that she would teach us. And then so how she would, people said like, well, how did she punish if she wasn't strict? My mom would punish us by taking things away from us. And so but that was also in extreme circumstances. Most of the time we could tell by a look or like that, okay, we're crossing a line here, and we would then listen. And that was it, bro. She was very, the other thing is with my mom is that she was very consistent with her punishments. And I think that parents aren't. They'll say, "You do that one more time, I'll take it away." My mom, if she said, "You do that one more time, I'll take it away," and you do it, that's being taken away every single time, bro. If she says that's going for 2 weeks, I'm telling you now, I'm not seeing that gadget for 2 weeks. My PSP, if she said I'm taking it for 2 weeks, bro, even after I apologize to her and everything, and we're good, still, that doesn't mean I'm getting back in 2 weeks. I'm like, "Mom, we're good now. Like, we laugh and joke." So, yeah, it's fine. But I told you 2 weeks. You're not getting. And but that made me realize that if my mom says she's going to take something away, she's taking it away. So that was how she would punish us. She was consistent with her punishments. Then my dad was very like, I think how dads should be, which is, it was very clear that he was an authority figure, but he never needed to shout at us. My dad has never raised his voice. He's never laid a finger on us. But it was very clear, if dad says something, that's it, it's done. Like there's like, and I don't know like the means through which how he implemented that, or if it was just his like haiba or something, like his presence. But regardless, that's how it was. But I think look, I don't believe in the whole like, oh, like if you want your kids to respect you should respect them and stuff like that. I'm not saying I don't believe in it, but I'm saying like you're the parent, like you are allowed to have authority. However, with that being said, my dad did very much so respect us, and he did, he was so loving, and he would give us anything that we wanted. So it was two-way. So it was like he would respect us. They would take our opinions into consideration. My mom was very like hands-on, and she would read us books every night, and just teach us things. That's your older brother, that's your older sister. No, you don't do it with your siblings.
Do you like preface the names of your brothers or sisters, like you say Baijan or?
No, we don't.
No, just
yeah, which is weird because that is quite respectful, isn't it?
That is, yeah.
That is weird because so we were brought up again not very cultural at all.
What's your background?
Pakistani.
Yeah.
My mum was born in the UK. Her dad came to the UK in the 1970s. So my mum was born. No, my dad came to the UK. My granddad came to the UK in the 1960s. My mum was born in 1970. So she was quite a young mum because she had her first child, my older sister, at 19. And then there was my brother who she had at 20. And then she had me at 20, just before 22 or around 22. So she had 3 children under 3. Man. Yeah. She had 3 kids under 3. And then she had my other little sister, the 4th, after some time. So that's another thing, bro. The 3 of us, me, my older brother, my older sister, because she had 3 under 3, like I have now. No, I don't. That's not true. I have a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and
it doesn't sound as catchy.
No, it doesn't. So she had 3 under 3. So that forces us to be close to each other. So I think it was like that was like the parenting technique and style. I think then, like everybody does, we went through hardships as well growing up. Like my mama had cancer at one point and things like this. And so when you have those hardships, and by the way, everybody has hardships. So like it just comes in different forms, shapes and sizes, right? Yeah. But because of those hardships, it made our siblings closer because we kind of like had to rely on each other a lot. So I think that's like the reason for it all. But ultimately, I'll put it down to my mum and her cutting off those things, not being rude. There was no space for us to like fight. It just wasn't an option for us. So we'd have to. I don't even remember how we would disagree. I guess like as kids, you do those like things where like, oh, like don't talk to me, and then like you'd go to your room or something. I guess, but yeah, that's like at most.
I think the biggest takeaway from that is consistency.
Yeah,
that's one thing. It's just consistent because we might not realize, but kids are so smart.
Yeah.
They know the difference between a parent, even in the same household, that this person will just say something, but they won't do it. And this one, if this person says something, it's gonna happen. Yeah. And cycle, even if they're like 3 years old, they don't know what's happening, but they know that this person means business. And I think that the fact that she was able to be consistent, regardless of whether you're friends, because for me, I know I'll be soft where if you've done something to upset me, and then maybe a couple of days later we're all good now, we're on good terms, and I'll be like, oh, you know what? Now we're on good terms. Maybe I'll just give it.
Yeah.
And that's where the challenge lies.
I think another one is that, now that I think about it, that both my mom and dad, in their own respective rights, they had a lot of izzah, a lot of like honor in themselves, that they were seen well by their friend circles and stuff like that. And that's helpful, because if you see your parents being disrespected, maybe you would look at your parents in a different way. But because other people also respected your parents, I think you would respect your parents as well. Like if for example, like my dad said like, don't do something, and then my mom was like, oh, go on, it's all right, like your dad's not here. Then I would be like, oh, like mum's saying that I can not do it, so it's fine. Like as long when dad's not here, mum's on my side. There was none of that. It was like, you know, my dad to this day, like my dad, like my mum said something, you can't go to my dad and try and get an out. Like, no, if that's what your mum said, it's done. And I tried to practice that. My son, the other day, Zachariah, he came to me. No, he went to so I was in the kitchen and his mum was in the living room. He comes in from the garden and he goes, Mum, can I have an ice lolly? And she goes, no. And then he comes to me in the kitchen and he goes, Dad, can I have an ice lolly? And I said, if your mum said no, then it's no. Even if I was gonna give him an ice lolly, now I'm not, because he's trying to get me to differ from his mum.
Yeah. That's a good point. What's your fondest memory of your mum when you guys were younger?
It's something that I appreciate now that I didn't appreciate at the time, which is that she would always make effort to take us out. So like, even for example, there was times where she didn't have a car, so she would get all of us 4 kids in the winter on the bus. I remember it was 20p for a kid to go on the bus at that time. And she would do things. She wouldn't let things stop her. At the time, we'd be moany kids, like, oh, I don't want to go out. Like, but now, actually, come to think of it, the fact that she would put in that effort, I think that's like, that as like a whole is like a really fond memory for me. That like, and it went to show me that she did put in effort, and she would like make a lot of jokes with us and play with us. Like, I have one of my fondest memories is when my mum broke the news to us that we were having another sister, she was pregnant. Right?
How old were you at this time?
I was 6, my brother was 8, my sister was 9. So I was old enough to remember. And I remember it so clearly. So, you know, after school, she brought us into the living room. She said, no, sorry, this isn't when she told us that she was pregnant. This is when she was telling us how we should behave with the baby. Right? Either it was when she told us she was pregnant, or maybe it was the two combined. I can't remember now. But the thing that I remember is we're in the living room and she had a baby doll, my older sister's doll. Yeah. And she goes, right. And what a beautiful way, bro, of explaining something, a serious topic to your kids. She was like, right, we're going to have a baby. You have to be careful with the baby. Okay. So she said, when you hold the baby like this. If the baby is like crying, you know, you could touch it like this. But you don't do this. And she would like get the doll and like smash it against the wall, or actually throw it in the air. And we were like, laughing so much. But then it was so funny, bro. And then we'd all have turns and we'd be like, oh, Mum, I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to do this. And I start punching the dolls out. So she would make things really fun. She'd explain things in really, really fun ways. So she was a friend.
Thought it through beforehand, like, this is the way I'll do it. And then, or did you think it just came to her at the moment? This is what I'm going to do and this is how I'll explain it.
I don't. My mum's a teacher.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, my mum's a teacher. She
sounds like a teacher.
She's a teacher, so maybe that helps.
Yeah.
But she's I don't know, man. She's like a great communicator.
Yeah, you can tell, like with the consistency. I knew, like, in my mind, that she would have been an amazing teacher.
Yeah, she's a teacher.
But, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Though, just the way that she's saying and explaining it to you, and using a prop as well. It just.
Yeah, and again, like my dad. But by the way, like there's when it comes to parenting, I'm like following philosophies. I'm not just going in with it blind.
Yeah.
And some of those come from how I was raised. Some others come from like what I've studied. I studied criminology, which is like weirdly very appropriate for parenting, because you're studying the mind, you're basically studying a human psychology, why they make decisions they make, motives behind what they do, and stuff like that. And that relates to children a lot. And then also I'm basing it on other success stories as well. So I've seen a lot of great things that my wife's parents have done that have impacted her in a great way. So for example, my wife's parents, they're very financially savvy. They don't often make bad financial decisions, and I do. I'm the spender, so I learn from that, right? Because I want to be able to teach that. So I try and learn from other success stories. But even like I have Islamic teachers who their kids are like hafiz by the age of 10. Right? Like I want my kids to be hafiz, but I've not got a blueprint for that because we weren't raised in that way necessarily, and so I'm learning from them as well. But out of all of those, the biggest knowledge base that I have is how I was raised and how that made me feel. So I was like, like my dad never laid a finger on us, but yet we respected him. There's something there. Like let me emulate some of the things that he did, the way he would try and spoil us no matter what. And you know, he always had my dad has always had like this grit, never give up attitude. My dad, he's just, no matter how bad the situation is, one thing he will never do is give up. No matter like, you know, how bad the situation looks. And so learn that from them. And I've learned that now from myself. I've watched him. I'm going, okay, so I want to do that. And so my kids will see it. So, it's kind of been how I've learned, but I can't remember what I was going to say.
So I'm going to get to this question in a second.
Fine.
But fondest memory with your dad? Anything stand out?
I think my fondest, I don't know about like specific memory, but what I love about my dad is that he was always there for you when you needed him. You know, he was always present throughout my whole childhood. And I think that's really important as a dad. And that means that's in the highs, but it's also in the lows. Like I had some pretty naughty moments, bro, as a kid. I got myself in some serious trouble. Yeah. And my dad would be there for me. And first and foremost, he'd be there as a support, not to tell me off. He was very wise, and he's still very wise. He knows when to tell off, when to be there for you and stuff like that. And so in general, like the fact that I've always been able to rely on him because he has been so present, that's one thing. And then the second thing is that he'll always try and give his kids the best, even if it's difficult for him. But he'll try, he would, I think all parents like this, he would rather suffer himself than his kids suffer. So that in general is like my fond memories.
Probably links on to the next question then, is that because the memories that you're sharing, I'm guessing these are the same things that you try to implement in your own parenting.
Definitely.
So consistency, being there.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that you've mentioned, and even though I've not watched much, but one of the things that you mentioned in your episode with Kaya was using softer words with kids.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think too much about it because the way that we've been brought up, me and you, is completely different. By that, what I mean is, and like the friends I was with, we were different. And not in a negative way, but we were just like very harsh with each other always. But we also made sure that we were there when we needed each other.
Yeah.
But only moving to Dubai, and even to be fair, when I started work, I realized that not everyone is like that. You know, so for example, in a leadership position, you might have a teacher that comes to you. And for me, what I would just do is just be like, I read this book called Radical Candor, and it just talks about the importance of honesty, and how people try to shy away from difficult conversations because they don't want to hurt someone's feelings.
Sure.
And the way I went about it initially was completely wrong because I just thought everyone's like me. Like if I did something I shouldn't have done, I would want you to come to me and tell me straight up, raw, like this is what you need to do, this is what you need to change. Because in my mind, then I'll be like, this guy actually cares about me, because otherwise he'd just forget about it and just move on. But he's actually taking some time out and saying that this is what you need to do to improve. And he's going straight to the point. I don't need anything sugar-coated. But only after a long time I realized that not everyone's like that. Sometimes people need to be told in a soft, gentle way. Sometimes, like, even this friendship, like, I know how you are in terms of, like, you don't want people to roast you or, like, being harsh. You want to have, like, a positive friendship kind of thing. And that was, like, I didn't even knew that existed until, like, when I moved to Dubai. Do you understand? Then I realized that actually there are different types of friendships. And as a Muslim, I need to make sure I'm catering, or I'm trying to be the best person for the people that I'm meeting. And for you, it might be different. For my other friends, it might be different as well. So when you talked about softer words, that was something when I was literally just driving on the way here, and I was like, I'm definitely going to do that with the kids. Like, and it's not like they
What
use.
was the example I gave in the podcast?
So you were saying that there are certain words that you're talking about. Number one, number two.
That's right. Yeah. Now I remember.
And even though it's not like it's like a crazy word or anything, but it's still like it's a good thing for the kids where they don't like
they should be shy around those
like
things,
in Islam as well. In Islam, that's what we're taught, right? Like
shyness.
The shyness, haya should be there, which is funny because when Eesa came back from school one day, and then we were talking, and it reminded me of the story, and he was like, "Oh, sorry, Dad, I just passed wind."
That's nice.
Yeah, he kept saying that. I remember in Leicester,
so they're way better than my kids, bro. My kids are, I should have farted.
No, but he usually says that. That's why he just says, "Oh, I farted," and I was like, "Where did you learn that?" He said, "Oh, my Qur'an teacher said like you don't say fart, you say this."
Oh, that's incredible, bro. That's really.
But I remember reading the books in Leicester, in madrasa, and they never used to say fart. You just say when you pass wind, you have to do wudu like this or like that kind of thing, and it was like a blast from the past. But I was like, "Oh, that's really nice thing to say." We need to encourage that more and trying to encourage that a bit more. But like, I think when you hear other people's stories, you can always pick something.
Oh, bro, yeah.
And that's one of the things, like in terms of softer wording, I think it'll go a long way. Like
even
things like, for me, initially before, I wouldn't think too much about the word like stupid. But now it's like,
stupid's a big one, bro. We weren't allowed to say stupid growing up.
Yeah. But then thinking more about it is that, what's the need for that?
Yeah, why would you call someone stupid?
It's not about harsh or not harsh. You don't need to say that word.
Yeah, it's true.
Something that he's doing more and more now is, I don't know what to think of this, to be honest. I'd like your take on it. It's like, sometimes in my mind, I want to say something, but I don't say it. And he's like, oh, shaitan's making me think that this person's, and he's saying the S word. He didn't say it, just said, oh, I want to say the S word. Maybe someone did something, pushed him or something, and he said he wants to say it. He said, but I didn't say it, I just thought it. So in my mind, I was like, look, don't think that word. But number two, in Islam, you're judged by what you actually do or say, not what you think. Sometimes you might get angry and you might think something in your head, but as long as you don't verbalize it, then it's okay. I don't know, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I think like to an extent we have to give kids the benefit of the doubt as well, because one of my flaws as a parent, this is probably my biggest flaw as a parent, is that I forget that kids are like, they don't think like us. You know, we've got all these life experiences and they're still kids. They're so innocent, bro. And so I have to constantly remind myself that. So if I'm like have an expectation of my children, well, no, I need to relax a bit with that expectation, because that's an expectation I have of myself, but I'm a 30-year-old man and this is a 5-year-old child. Yeah. So like they are going to, my wife said this to me the other day. She was like, you know, I was getting a bit frustrated at the kids, and she said, you got to bear in mind, like, Khalil's 3. To an extent, a 3-year-old is going to, when they're angry, like, you know, have a bit of a strop. And so I think to an extent, like things like that, I now I would probably just try and be like, okay, it's fine. It's like, you know, find the good in it. It's good that you didn't say it. And then like leave it at that until like the moment.
Yeah, because what I said was, even as adults, there'll be times where in your mind you feel anger or you feel like saying something, but you stop yourself. Yeah, you know, and that's what matters, right? Because you're not going to be judged by what you're thinking. Exactly, it's about what you do and say.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I didn't do this because Shaitan told me not to. I was like, after
my kids aren't at that age yet where they understand their relationship with like the.
Yeah, so he's like, I think you're using him as a scapegoat for. I didn't finish my food today, and that's the problem. Yeah. Do you have certain things in your mind where, like, as parents together, are there certain things where, look, these are the 5 things that we want to make sure that we do?
No, to be honest.
Non-negotiables.
Okay, so I think this is another thing that's quite interesting, is that when you embark on this beautiful journey of parenthood, you are one half of the parent, and you come with all of your life experiences, the way you were raised, and the ethics and morals that are important to you. And then your other half, so your wife, or if you're a woman, your husband, comes with their life experiences, their morals, their ethics that they've been raised with that are important to them. And so you have to work with each other, right? You can't just raise a kid in all the ways that you want to raise your kid. You have to do it in a partnership. And so I think that's been a challenge. But then you find the similarities, and then you also go soft on things that you don't need to be so harsh on. This is like, would my wife probably prefer that I'm like a bit less like stern on the kids, like doing their hifth right now, or like on making sure that they, you know, whatever, like Probably yes. She probably would, but does she say it? No, because she picks her battles. And likewise, would I be as strict or as loose on other things? Like, for example, perhaps my wife will, I don't know, let my kids jump on the trampoline and do a front flip, right? This is an actual thing, right? I myself, I'm like, oh, like, why is it doing front flip? Like, you could hurt your neck. But
is there a cover around it?
Yeah, there's a cover around it. But my wife, she's like, let them like do flips, it's fine. So that's an example of where I'm like, okay, it's not worth picking my battle. It's not worth like fighting over this. We're different here. Whereas I would rather like be like, don't do a flip because you could hurt yourself. And she's more like, let them be boys.
And both things are coming from
both
a
are
good place.
fine. Yeah. And so you have to pick your battles and go, okay, actually it's not that deep. Like she's also the mom and she's decided it's safe and she's got the net around it and she's like, and I don't need to pick on every single thing. So I think like there's that constant
compromise,
trying to make sure you pick the battles and stuff like that. But no, we haven't necessarily had an intentional discussion about those things. I think probably will as they get older. But I know we differ on things like, for example, education is very important to my wife and like she would love for the kids to go to university. I don't mind if they don't go to university, but again, that's conversations for when they're older. And ultimately, if they want to go uni, they can go uni. If they don't want to go uni, they don't have to go uni. I think we're both like, so yeah. I think at this age, they're 5, 3 and 0. We haven't necessarily had like that intentional conversation to that degree yet.
Yeah. You're not sitting him down and talking about what he's taking at uni yet.
Yeah. So I think we've got time. Yeah. But I think like the bigger takeaway from like being parents and working with your spouse is just trying to pick your battles. Yeah.
Just remind me, what did you say in terms of what your biggest, I don't think you said flaw, weakness as a parent? My
biggest weakness is like remembering that my children are children, and so they don't need to have the expectations that I would have them. So like I don't need to be annoyed at them because they got frustrated over something. Like, okay, he's 5, he's gonna get frustrated.
Yeah, it reminded me of I'm not now. 2 years ago we started reading Qur'an, me and Eesa together.
Okay.
And one of my biggest flaws is I'm very quick to anger, and this is something I'm always working on, and I feel I'm getting better slowly,
which is hard to believe, by the way.
No, I remember one moment, the first time I met you, we were outside the mosque. I don't know whether you remember this. I don't know why Eesa never does this, but he had water, and for some reason he just thought it'd be funny. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm meeting Faisal here, yeah. And obviously I've watched this stuff. I don't know why he did this. He got water and he just started splashing on me, and I was just like, this guy's embarrassing me.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I was
like, and you're like, come around, bro. It's okay. It's okay. And I was like,
I don't remember.
Man, how does this guy? And I was like expressing, but
your kids are the best along with my blessing. Like the fact that they're like always in the messages and they're behaving and stuff like that. They're incredible. Man.
No, but for Adam, it wasn't the case. I think before you came, the first 3-4 months, I had to. This is where consistency came in. Where I brought him to the mosque, and then he was being a little bit silly. And for me, in the mosque, like no tolerance. I don't want no noise at all. If he's looking around and all that, that's fine. But you're not disturbing the salah of other people.
Yeah.
And then if he did that, then for a week, he's not come to the mosque.
I do the exact same thing. I banned my kids from mosque all the time.
Yeah. And the thing is, they just want to go, please let me go to the mosque. And I was like, no, not today. Yeah. But within about 2-3 months, and he got it down. And then outside the mosque and outside salah, he's like acting like junkies, But within the mosque, anger is my biggest issue. But this helped me a lot because I'm teaching him Qur'an. And about 2 months into it, how is he making this tajweed mistake? In my mind, I'm just like flipping out.
Yeah.
Then I realized he's only started learning 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You know, whereas I've been praying for
it's hard because you have to constantly remind yourself that. And that is difficult to remember. I think maybe like because we want so good for them that we can get frustrated, but we have to. I think that's why also it's so amazing that Allah's made it that a child has a mum and a dad, because actually it's often the wife, isn't it, who's like, relax, like it's okay. You're right, it's fine.
She's like a lot softer, they'll go to him, etc. But also I'm conscious in my mind that if I'm flipping out of him reading Quran, he's gonna grow like a distaste for it, and it's like, if I do that, he's gonna associate bad memories to reading it. And those are the 2 things that was in my mind where just calm down. And now alhamdulillah, we're 2 years in now and it's getting a lot better. He's not making as much mistakes, but there'll still be times where he'll read the ayah perfectly the first time. Then he reads the same ayah like 10 seconds later and he'll make a mistake. And in my mind, I'm just like, but you just read it properly right now. But then I've just got to realize that for whatever reason, he's made that mistake. But I think anger for me is something that I need to work on always. Like just hold myself back.
Yeah, that's different. That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that about you, but
and that's the sad thing, isn't it? Because the people that you're closest with, you're more quick to anger. Whereas people you don't know, then you're more likely to be nice and polite. And this is something that always stuck with me from my childhood, is that why are you acting harsh to the people that love you the most, but then with the people that you don't know, you are being so gentle and nice and kind to them? It should be the other way around.
Yeah, it's true. Right? It's true.
And that's something that I always think about as well. So yeah, how was let's move back a bit more.
Okay.
Marriage.
Yep.
If someone is looking to get married, what kind of things would you advise them to look for? Okay,
so I have just one piece of advice when it comes to marriage.
Go on.
I think it's the best advice, but it's only one piece. I don't have lots of advices. I'm not that much of a pro, but I think this is a really great piece of advice for someone looking at marriage. I think that if you're getting married, the only thing that you should be focused on is making sure that you have a really great friend circle that care about the things that you care about, that are practicing and stuff like that. Because you know, when a person is not practicing, when you're like jahil, if one of your boys was like, yo, I want to be with your sister, you'd be like, are you mad? Like the things that we talk about, the things that we do, like I wouldn't want you to go near someone in my family. The beautiful thing about when you're practicing the religion, it's like you go to your friend and you say, bro, I'd love for you to be part of my family. Like, would you consider marrying my sister? Look at the difference in the two. The difference that makes is friendship. And so I think if you are trying to be a good person and you try to surround yourself around good people, eventually, like being around a good circle, one of your friends will be like, bro, like, and you're like, you know, you don't roast each other and you don't talk about like, you know, nasty things with each other, and you go to the masjid together. Eventually there'll be one of your friends who will go, bro, by the way, like, you know, I've known you for X amount of time now, and I'm like, I only know good things about you. My sister, my cousin, is looking for marriage. And I'd love it if you considered it, or if you know, if you're looking, stuff like that. So I think for brothers and sisters, if you're a sister, you know, surround yourself around good sisters. If you're brother, surround yourself around good brothers, because they have brothers and sisters. So I think just be a good person, surround yourself around good people, make dua, and yeah, man, like that's how I got married. I you know Idris, right? Yeah, I think you might have seen him. You used to something the other day. He's the one who has your racket right now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I've seen him.
I met him in the masjid
recently.
Yeah, I met him in the masjid in Itikaf. Became really good friends. Eventually, he was like, "Look, my uncle's looking for someone for his daughter." So and then it's like, okay, like, so, you know, that was because I had a really good friend who's like, I met him in the most blessed place in the masjid where he was leading salah, and we were like, you know, we became friends. So I think just don't overcomplicate it. Like, have good friends, try and be a good person, fix yourself. Eventually somebody will be like, this guy's a great guy. Like, I'm looking for someone right now for my family member. And I thought of you.
So be the type of person that your friends would recommend you to marry for their own family.
Yeah.
I've got one piece of advice.
Okay.
It's marry the person. I want to try to word it properly, but marry the person that you wouldn't mind having a daughter like.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So if you've got a picture of this hypothetical daughter in your mind, what kind of qualities will she have? How will she talk, act, dress? How is she with the religion, etc.? If your wife is literally like that, then you can't really go wrong.
Yeah, that's incredible, bro. That's incredible.
That's what. So because being a teacher, even though these kids are like in year 10 and 11, they'll come to you with these crazy questions. And many a times, like, they've asked me, oh, you know what, Mr. Ganchi, what should I look for in a wife? You know, and they'll come and sit, and especially in the UK, like these kids, like in Leicester, these Muslim kids will come, will sit, a break and lunch, they'll just keep like trying to have my lunch here, and they'll all just come in the room and we'll just talk about.
That's nice. Like it shows that like they feel like they could talk.
Yeah, it's good because we have good conversations, and it's good that they feel like they can come to someone. And even if might not be the most qualified in specific aspects, I'll guide them in the right direction. So yeah, that's the questions it has. But what you said makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
it does make a lot of sense. Parenthood.
Yeah.
First child.
Yes.
How did it go?
Bro, like everyone, it's cliche, but it's the best feeling in the world, isn't it? Me and my oldest son Zachariah were literally best friends.
Did you plan when you first found out? How did you plan for the child, like reading and I don't know, any other way?
No, I don't think so. With like reading and stuff, I've very much so learned on the job. So with each stage, I just try to be as best as I can be. But no, I definitely didn't do any reading and stuff like that.
Mm.
I think now I do a little bit more because they have personality traits. It's like, like how do you deal with a kid who like my kids are complete opposite. By the way, I read this incredible thing the other day, which said you have to be a different person for each of your kids.
Okay.
And bro, that blew my mind because you can't, like, in my head, I was always like I was a dad, and these are my traits as a dad. I am strict on this. I'm easy on this. I encourage this. But then what I realized is that I'm applying this one-size-fits-all parenting to children who are completely opposite. My oldest son is so sensitive. He's so empathetic. He cares about others. And but then, the negatives of that is that, like, if he gets hurt, it's like a big deal, right? My second kid is like flipping, like jumping on the sofa. But then like, as nice as that is, because it's also like if he does something naughty and you tell him off, he doesn't care. You tell your older one, you tell him off, he'll be like, I'm so sorry, and like he'll fix up. The other one, he'll be like, say sorry. He's like, sorry. It's like, so. But why am I applying the same one-size-fits-all parenting to two humans that are completely different? They need unique parenting.
So how would you change it between? Because literally the two boys you mentioned, that's Eesa and Adam.
Yeah.
Eesa is very sensitive, very soft.
Yeah.
He'll say sorry like 100 times.
Yeah.
Did you hear me say sorry?
Yeah.
I said sorry, right? Did you hear, like, I said, yes. I heard you said it's okay. Are you sure? I said, yeah, it's okay. Oh, he'll get upset. Like a week later, he'll mention it. So he's a bit, the second one is just like, sometimes this is flying off the wall sometimes. And and this is exactly what I'm doing right now, but his sorries don't mean much. Like, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So how have you changed your parenting method?
So what I've tried to start doing is so in criminology, we there's this thing that you do, which is like criminal profiling. So you basically look at the motives behind why a criminal commits a certain crime.
Sorry, while I was laughing, I was imagining the kids like
you also look at so you look at the motive. You look at basically like the why, right? Like what else do you look at when you're criminally profiling? Like their behavior, emotions, how they're acting before, after, stuff like that. So, okay, if you apply that to your children, then let's say, for example, if Zachariah drops a glass and it smashes all over the floor. Right?
That's the older one.
The older one. He would be like, sorry, like, accident. Instantly from that, like, sorry, you can see he regrets it. It was a mistake. He understands it was a mistake. He's apologized. To now say to him, go sit on the stairs, and it's not the right, in my opinion, approach. He's already accepted defeat. He's accepted that he was wrong, right? So at that point, because he's so apologetic and scared, it's like, okay, it was an accident, it's fine. Whereas if my younger kid today, he smashed the glass, he might be like, ha. It's like, no, that's wrong. You shouldn't have smashed the glass. You should be careful. Just sit on the stairs and you're there for 3 minutes or whatever, right? Or, if they were, going to have a donut that evening, no donut, and then staying with. So I think now I understand, and it's not inconsistent parenting, because there's things that Zachariah will do that Khalil doesn't do, and so at that point Zachariah will get the punishment and Khalil won't. So that's how I would do it. I'm detecting it from like them.
I'm just pushing back as devil's advocate. Then that inconsistency there. If one of the kids says, "Oh, but this one did the same thing and you didn't do this," then how would you respond to that?
I'll say, but he apologized straight away, or
meant it.
Yeah, he didn't say ha, or he didn't like carry on doing it or whatever, or he helped clean up. Like there'll be things that they would have done, right? So it's not just that they've done the exact same thing like for like, but then also there'll be other times, like I said, when someone will do something like, they've both got positives and negatives, right? What I'm intrigued by is like, what will my third son's personality be like? Because my current sons have two very opposite personalities. Like I don't know a third personality that exists at this point.
We'll find out. Find out.
Yeah,
no, that's really interesting. I don't think this is the case with you, so you might not be able to empathize here. Do the two older ones, like, do they bicker and fight?
They do, like normal kids, to an extent.
They do, yeah? Okay, cool. Because the reason I'm asking is that when we talked about you and your brothers, I felt like you guys never disagreed or argued.
Maybe when we were like 5 and 6, we must have.
This is what I mean. Whereas for me, it's very normal because I've had 3 brothers and 2 sisters, but we were always constantly bickering.
I remember. When we were like 5, I remember like once my granddad bought us this overhead projector. And then we would like fight over it because we want to use it and stuff like that. And like, yeah, of course, yeah, we I'm sure as 5, 6, 7, my memories of us not fighting really, I mean, from like a substantial age, right? Like
older enough to understand.
Oh no, yeah, maybe like teens and stuff like that. We didn't grow up like fighting. Yeah,
more sense because my boys do argue. They'll play fight a lot.
Yeah, same here.
And when they play fight, they both will go, should we play fight? Yeah, let's do it. And then they'll fight. And then after 10 minutes, someone falls. And
one of them's like
crying. Yeah. Well, I got a picture of him. He's got like mask. Because in the UK, I don't know about your house, but carpet's just like the norm. There's carpet everywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you very rarely find a whole room of carpet.
Bro, the stairs, bro.
Even the stairs, they're like, it's dangerous.
Of, yeah.
So when the kids fall in the UK, it's not that big a deal because they're usually falling on carpet. Whereas here, he fell on the marble and it's just like this huge bump. And
yeah, I've had a few of those kind of like freak accidents, man, as well. It's scary. I'm definitely like more of the parents like, oh, like be careful. And my missus like lets them be.
Yeah. So it's the opposite for us. For me, I feel like it was good because it made me more resilient. But I also, as a father, I know that I need to find a more healthy way for them to vent out that energy.
Yeah.
And that would probably be sports.
Yeah. Also trying to like understand like why they're doing things like it's really useful if your kids talk to you, like so you can one of my biggest inspirations, by the way, for being a good parent is my older sister.
Okay.
I only say that because like she has kids who are much older than my kids, and therefore like I've been able to see kind of like the full cycle in a way. She's an incredible mom. Incredible. But one of the things that she says to her kids, which has stuck with me, which I plan to do with my kids when they're old enough to have these problems, is she'll say to them, if you are going through a problem, you have to communicate to me. Because if you tell me, I can help you find a solution. If you don't tell me, I can't help you. And they really understand that. So now, bro, when they have even problems at school and stuff, because her kids are, I want to say like, this could be embarrassing because she's going to see it. I want to say like 10 and 12 or something like that, or 10 and 11, like 9 and 10. But they, my oldest is 5, right? So they like double the age. So like, where was I going?
Just about, if you don't tell me.
Yeah, so then now they come home from school and they'll have gone through something at school and they'll tell her. And she's like, well, first of all, well done for telling me because now I can help you find a solution. And she says to them, there's always a solution. And that's another thing. Oh, bro, that, by the way, for kids, especially as they get older, is going to be like the most powerful thing because it was powerful for me. My dad used to say to me, no matter how big the problem is, there's always a solution. You have to talk to me, we'll figure it out. And it's true, by the way, bro. There is always a solution. It's not, it's not like an end game because sometimes in life, even as adults, we backed into a corner and we think there's no way out. There always is, without going to an extreme. And so kids, that's us as adults. So imagine kids, sometimes they don't even understand the whole scope of the world. And so they'll go through a problem which in their head is the largest problem that to ever exist and they can't find a way out. The minute they tell someone, that person might have a solution, right? So, yeah, that's incredible. When she says that a lot to her kids, and I like to use that for my kids as well.
When you said that, it reminded me of the story. I'm not sure whether I'll keep it on or not, but I want to share this with you because I've not thought about it since the day it happened. But when I was in year 6, I started a new mosque, and I don't know what happened, but so when you're starting a new classroom, sometimes people pick on you, and so obviously I've just fought back. But the time when it happened, the mosque teacher literally just came into the classroom, and so he only saw me like trying to protect myself, and then he kicked me out. He said, "This is your first day and you're already causing fights. You're kicked out." And I was just so scared that day because we live literally opposite the park, so I just spent that day in the park, and then I came home. I didn't tell anyone because I thought there's no way out here. Like, I've started a new mosque and it's a really good mosque, and I know that we tried to get in for a while. We were on the waiting list, and I remember for 1 month when it was time to go mosque at 5 o'clock, I just go in the park.
Wow!
And just sit on the bench and read the Qur'an, whatever I was doing, and because I was so scared. And this is something I didn't even think about this for a very long time. There was this old man that used to walk around the park at that time. Then after like that last end of that month, he said, "Look, I see you sit here and read the Quran." He said it in Gujarati at the time. And he said, why are you here? So I told him the story. So he took my hand and he walked me to the madrasa, and he said, don't worry, I knew this head teacher when he was a kid. So he took me there and said, this is the story, and can you let him back in? And he let me back in.
Wow.
And this man now, he's passed away now. A couple of years ago, he passed away. May Allah bless him.
You better keep that story in, bro. That's an incredible story.
And I just thought, wow, there's always a way out. But the reason why I was thinking of not to keep a note, I just felt like there was no one I could turn to, because, and this is something that I get a bit emotional here, but that when I know one day it's going to happen to my kids, where they're going to have a situation like that, and I need to remind myself not to get angry when they come to me.
Oh, bro.
That's what I'm scared of, that I'm just going to flip out, and then they'll never be able to come to me again.
And you know what, bro? You will never regret not getting angry. The Prophet ﷺ, a guy came to him and he said, give me advice. And the Prophet ﷺ said, La taghdab, don't get angry. And by the way, the guy just said, give me advice. You know what I mean? The Sahabi. It could have been anything.
Yeah.
Like the Prophet ﷺ could have said, look after your children and, respect your mother. He said, La taghdab, don't get angry. Then the Sahabi said, give me advice again. The Prophet ﷺ said, La taghdab. Then the Sahabi asked again, and the Prophet ﷺ said, La taghdab. Don't get angry, don't get angry, don't get angry. And we know from the Qur'an and the Sunnah, when something's repeated numerous times, especially 3 times, it's because of the emphasis. And also, the fact that 3 times the Prophet ﷺ repeated the same thing, it just goes to show that anger really is at the root of so much badness. And I, by the way, am the same. I get angry as well, and it's tough, and especially when they really test your patience. But I feel like I get angry at the small things, but I'm good at not getting angry at the big things. So if my son came to me and was like, I did this huge, big mistake, I wouldn't get angry. But if, for example, I've told you 3 times to brush your teeth and you've not brushed your teeth, I'm losing it, bro. So I'm good at it. But bro, first of all, I was going to say this to you earlier. The self-awareness that you have, I get angry, I don't want to get angry. You said something else earlier, which I can't remember what it was, but it was very self-aware. The fact that you're so self-aware is the biggest advantage that you have, because some people have flaws, bro, and they don't even know their flaws. What a shame, because they can't fix them. So you're never going to be perfect, but the fact that you know these things about yourself is incredible. And I think that you will conquer those things. I think that you love your children so much that at the end of the day, when a child comes to you with a problem, you know that you are all they have, you're their lifeline. And it would be a shame if they would never come to you again because of the anger. And the same advice that you would tell your children, that anything, we can find a solution for anything if you talk. That's also advice that you should take for yourself. Whatever my kid comes to me for, there will be a solution. And my dad was like that, bro. Whatever it is, there will always be a solution. I spoke to my dad recently, right? I'm 30, bro. And I belled my dad and I told him something that I was basically going to walk away from a huge opportunity, basically. And objectively, it's the dumbest thing a person can do, right? And I basically told him, I said, look, Dad, for X, Y, and Z reason, I'm going to walk away from this opportunity. And he goes, fine. He goes, if that's how you feel, we'll figure everything out. So it's fine. But don't think that there's no solution or that things are going to be tough or whatever. Everything's figure outable. And so to have, even at 30, bro, to have my dad tell me that, it puts me at ease so much to go, you know what, he's right. Everything will get figured out. It's fine. You'd rather, let's say, for example, Ganchi, your job at your school, was really causing you burnout, and you were like, I'm done with this, stuff like that. But you have a wife and 3 kids, is it? To look after and stuff like that. And you called your dad and you said, Dad, I'm burnt out, man. And I've been thinking about this for a while. I think I'm going to walk away. Imagine if your dad goes to you, if that's what you want to do, your health is priority, mind being free is priority. We'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. If you need, some assistance in the meantime, we'll figure it out. But don't worry, do what's that is so empowering, bro. Because that's also what you'd want to say to your kids. Yes, of course you want to advise your kids when they're doing something dumb, but provided you raise them the right way and they mature, if your son would say to you, Dad, I'm struggling here, man, and you what's the best thing you could say to your son at that point when he's a grown man? What's the best thing you could say? You probably say to him, bro.
I think firstly, I'd just say, not in these words, but thank you for coming to me.
Yeah.
I'm glad you feel comfortable enough to come and speak to me about it, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out. That's it, bro. Everything's figurable, bro. Like, our Lord is Allah. You know what I mean, bro? Like, that's the biggest life hack. It's like, our Lord is the one who is the most loving, the one who is our provider, you know, our sustainer, our loving friend. He is like Al-Wadud, the loving. He is Al-Hakim, the all-wise. So when that is your Lord, you know, how can you lose, bro? As long as, you know, what you're doing is sincere, as long as you're not displeasing him in what you're doing, as long as you're trying, you know, and you're putting an effort forward, you know, you're waking up for tahajjud, you're making dua for it, like, bro, like, Allah is looking for excuses to, like, give to his servants, you know? So, yeah, I think in terms of advising your children, that's important. I think, like, parents are I've seen, like, other parents, like, they're very, like, overbearing on their kids, bro. I'm not talking about parents of kids. Yeah, so I mean, like, parents of older kids, late teenagers, young adults. I've seen it, bro. I've seen them, like, the parents are still, like, making the decisions for their kids. It's like, you can't make decisions at that point because they're, like, practically an adult. But what you can do is be there for them. And you could try and guide them. If they make a decision, you can support them, because that's what parents are for. Like, when all else fails, you have your parents. You know what I mean? And if you feel like your children are making really bad decisions at that age, potentially, like, you might have messed up a little bit as a parent, maybe. Right? Maybe. I'm not saying completely, but so right now, you and I, who are parents to young kids, we've got to make sure that we try and parent our kids in a way where when they're 20, which, by the way, they can make mistakes. They might do things that you just think, oh, I could never imagine my kid doing that. But is so that when they're 20, like, at least, you know, they have a level of ethical foundations. You know what I mean? There's things that they won't fall into, because just like there's a level has been set. After that level, of course, bro, like, they're their own human beings. They make mistakes. Stuff like that. People do that. By the way, I'm not saying never be strict to your kids, never reprimand your kids. I'm the strict parent. And my parents have had their history of being strict with us when they've needed to. But the most important thing a parent can be is that support for their children, because I've experienced, when all else is, like, down now, that my parents have always been 100%. My mum, for example, bro, her thing has always been, and my dad, my mum's thing has always been, like, do what you want to do. So, like, she's never gone, like, why are you studying this at university, or why aren't you getting this job? It's always been very, like, pushing into independent thinking. And I think that because of that, you feel a sense of responsibility, like, let me not let that down, because like, my mum has allowed me to have a lot of freedom, my dad has allowed me to have a lot of freedom, so let me also not be a bum. You know what I mean? And they're both very hardworking and stuff, so you see that, and then it makes you want to be not be.
What about from an Islamic standpoint? So when you are at home, how did they enforce, like, Islam at home? Did they have any rules? Making salah and that type of thing?
There's definitely things I remember. If you got to bear in mind that I kind of had my awakening when I was about 20 years old from Islam. So that's when I really actually started, like, taking it super serious. But I do remember things, like, I remember once our neighbor passed away, and she was really horrible to us, bro. Like, growing up, we had a neighbor who, like, throw stones out our window, and she's really difficult with my mom and stuff like that. And then I remember my mom, you know, we were like, I know that I was the oldest I could possibly have been was 6, because I remember the house that we were in, and we moved out of that house when I was 6. So I was maybe 4 or 5, but I have this memory. My mom was basically, like, leading us in Jama'at, right? Like, her kids. And after, she said, make dua for the neighbor who just passed away. And I remembered that, because I've gone, wow, like, someone can treat you so bad, and then you're, like, saying to your kids that make dua for her. So I remember that. I remember, like, growing up, like, my nan would make us read the Fatiha to her to, like, perfect it so that we know how to pray. So things like that I remember. I remember my mum instilled a lot of, like, ethics with us, like as I was a teenager and I was like, going through puberty and stuff, my mum was quite, she had like quite an open dialogue with me. So I remember one time she sat with me and she said, look, there's certain things that as Muslims we just don't do. And she explained those things to me. So yeah, like we weren't, a household of Hufad by any stretch of the margin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember bits of that kind of thing, yeah.
Your mum sounds like an amazing person.
My mum, she's incredible.
Bless her, keep her happy.
I mean, yeah, no, she's incredible. She, and you only realize as you get older, all of the things that you're so grateful that she
Is the things like, and I can, this is the same for me, is when you were younger, she said, you'll realize when you become a dad. Is there anything that you can remember of things that she used to say to you about things and now you remember them now? Like, I just remember things that my mom was saying when I was younger. She'd say, oh yeah, when you have kids and you'll realize X, Y, and Z. And I can't think about specific things, but I just, I thought maybe.
Well, one memory I have about my mom and about how potentially her parenting style was a little bit unconventional is that she always, from a very early age, instilled independence in her kids. So little things like she would cook dinner. She'd make one dinner every dinner time, but she wouldn't make different dinners for different kids. This is the dinner. Today we're having, chicken curry or whatever. And then dinner time comes and one of the kids, like me, for example, oh, I'm not hungry. So, okay, fine. If you're not hungry, don't eat. Dinner's here. I'm not making anything else. When you're ready, when you're hungry, go make yourself a plate, right? Now, I didn't know that was weird, right? Until I got a bit older. And then when I went to primary school, I remember one time I went to my friend's house in like after school because like for some reason, I don't know. And when we get to the house, bro, and it's time to eat dinner. And my friend is like, I'm not hungry, I don't want to eat. Bro, his mum locked him in the bathroom. I'm there. It's like, at least don't do this when your friend. Show him in the bathroom. He's kicking, screaming, let me out. She's like, no, because you're not eating your food. I was like, yo.
It must be awkward for you.
Bro, it was so awkward. But I was a kid, but I just remember so clearly. And then I remember my mum said to me that his mum asked my mum, like, your kids are so like, so basically all of her kids are super skinny, right? Like as in like, not like,
not anorexic, but just
they were really skinny. Okay. Like they were like quite, aggressively skinny. And so she said to my mom, your kids are all like,
healthy.
They're healthy looking. How come? Like, what's the secret? And my mom had observed that she was very forceful. She'd force feed her kids, this woman, right? And my mom said, you know what? Honestly, I cook a meal. And if my kids say they're not hungry, it's fine. But I just say to them, okay, dinner's there. And when it's time to eat. And she goes, every day, at some point, I'll see my kids. At some point, they go and they make some plate and they eat their dinner. And that's how I do it. And so that's one thing I remember about. Maybe it's like in college, we didn't have like a set dinner time. Everyone sat at a table. But there was a dinner time. Dinner's ready. Okay, you don't want to eat? Fine. So it was very independent. It was very, go make yourself a plate. That was one thing I remember. Another thing I remember about independence is that we had chores and we would have rounds. And so every day it was like, okay, today's Faisal's day to wash the dishes. And so, bro, I was washing dishes. I was ironing my school clothes. When I was in primary school, I'd iron my school clothes, bro. And my mum, I'd be like, Mom, I don't know how to iron my trousers to get the line in the trousers. Because she'd make sure we get the line in. And she'd be like, okay, fine. And that was my excuse. Like, I can't iron my trousers because I don't know how to do the line. I don't know how to fold it to get the line. So, okay, fine. When you get to your trousers, bring them to me. I'll fold them for you, and then you can iron the line. And okay, fine. So, so there's a lot of independence. So, chores would be like washing dishes, taking the bins out, cleaning the house, hoovering and stuff like that. And so we'd like rotate. I think like that was like big for my mum because it's like, look, she's got 4 kids here. Like, you guys need to help out a bit if you're going to live here. But it was never like, you do it. It was just like embedded. It was like part of our way of life. You guys are a team and you're working together. And so it'd be like, sometimes, you'd be like, oh, can I not do the dishes today? Because like, we try and swap with each other and stuff like that. So there's that. But there's no force feeding. Okay. And then the other thing I remember my mum would do this thing, right, where every day when we come home from school, so our school is opposite our house.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
even in primary school, we would walk home by ourselves because it was, when I say opposite, I'm talking like 5 steps, bro. It's like very close, yeah. So I think like the teacher could see that we're crossing the road like well or whatever, but it was just literally cross the road there. I from my classroom, I could see my house.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was jokes. So anyway, the point I'm making is we would come home from school and every day, bro, my mum would have ready for us a snack that she's cooked. So it'd be either a quiche she'd make, it'd be like sardines on French bread, which were just the best, bro. Yeah. It would be things like that. So like kind of like hot food, but it's not dinner yet. And it's like just like, and so every single day, like bar none, bro, we'd come home and we'd have something snack, a nice healthy snack ready for us. And then on special days, she'd do special things. So there'd always be something to look forward to go home to, like, oh, what's mum made or what's mum bought us? You know, sometimes we go home, it's like, oh yeah, I had to go to the high street today. So she bought us all like these like chocolate lollipops that have a love heart. You know, it's like, so she'd express her love a lot as well. So they're the things that I remember that I try to implement now. But like the dinner thing, bro, it's like or just that independence in general. I think it's like, Zachary, go brush your teeth. Oh, but I don't know how to get the toothpaste. Yes, you do. And okay, he did it. So these are kind of, they'll try and push back. But it's like, I don't need to be brushing your teeth for you now at this age. Or, now he can get himself ready and he'll try it sometimes. And sometimes, they're 5. So sometimes you're like, okay, fine, whatever. But for the most part, you're just trying to get that independence.
Yeah, I had a guest a few months ago, and that term is actually called helicopter parenting.
Okay.
That is when you over baby them too much, then you feel like they can't do anything.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
And it's like a helicopter, you're always there. So anytime they're doing anything, oh no, actually do it like this. So you're not giving them a chance to learn for themselves. You're just correcting their behavior. And therefore they can get into primary, even secondary, and they can't iron their clothes or eat on their own. And that is a big issue because it's coming from a good place, because you don't want them to face any obstacles, but also you're kind of, you're cutting them at their knees because they can't survive on their own, or they can't function. But I think it goes against the intuition of a parent, where you want to help as much as you can, but it's better if you don't. It's kind of cool to be kind kind of thing. That's why with Eesa, okay, I got him an alarm clock now, so he'll wake up. And in Dubai, these are waking up early, 5:30 a.m. And I was just like, but he doesn't know any better. Since he thinks this is normal. Whereas when his cousins in the UK waking up at 7:30, you know what I mean? Then they're like, wow. And then he's getting ready. He'll go toilet, brush his teeth, get changed himself, put on cream, brush his hair, and then he'll sit in. There's a chair that we do Qur'an. We start. It takes about 20 minutes. We do Qur'an in the morning now. Cause I used to do it after school, but he's just battered. He makes so many mistakes. In the morning, his mind's fresh. So we'll pray Fajr and we'll read Qur'an at the time, and he'll do it all himself. Adam is only 4, but he started getting changed himself. And he's doing that. He takes a lot longer. That's the thing with me, is that I want to rush and get ready quickly. But instead of me doing it with him, that'll take 2 minutes. He'll take 15. But in my mind, I know I've got to hold myself back. Because even though it takes 15 now, eventually he'll get faster and he'll do it himself. And it just makes less work for me in the morning.
Yeah, of course.
And he'll eat Weetabix, but the little one, they'll just be everywhere in the morning. But I just gotta live with that.
That's hard for me as well. But you have to embrace the mess. Yeah, like, I think I said the other day to my wife, the table's always a mess. And she was like, embrace the mess. Like, the only kids for live. I was like, you're right. Like, that's what kids are about. But I find those things hard.
Yeah. But that's something I remind myself, is we only get this moment with them for about, because when they're younger, like less than 3, they're just around and they're not really doing much. When they're 4 till about maybe 12, that's the time where they just look up to you, and you're like a Superman, and they just want to be around you always. When they get older, they have friends and they've got the other things. And even in Dubai, think about it, from the morning till like 4, they're at school. And then they come home and they may have to do homework and pray, and then they're going to sleep. They go to sleep at like 7, they're in bed. We don't have much time in the week. So even then, so the point I'm making is they're gonna grow up in the blink of an eye. So even though sometimes, that's one of the things I do to calm myself down when I'm getting a bit stressed, is that this time and this moment is fleeting. It's gonna go really, really quickly. and we'll remember these fond moments of how we spent our day.
It's true, man. And then you're going to be having an empty house. And you're like, oh, remember the time?
Exactly. That's what it is. And I constantly think about that. Like at least once a week, I'll just think this time's going. Yeah, but it makes me want to capitalize more on the time that we have and spending that time together. Alex Hamosi says, and I know you like Alex Hamosi because you mentioned it before, but one of the things that stuck with me, because I listen to a lot of things and his focus is usually on business and self-improvement, become better, but I'm always trying to apply it into all aspects of my life. One of the things he says is single action, many positive outcomes.
Okay.
So he said, what is the one thing you can do, one simple action that's going to have ramifications in all aspects of your life? And I'm trying to implement that in parenting.
Okay.
One of the things I've cut it down to is reading. For my child, one of the biggest focuses and pillars is going to be reading for Eesa. And out of all the kids when they get older, like when you talked about when your mom sat with you and reading stories to you before you went to bed, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. Because even though it's so obvious, many parents won't do that. And to instill a love of reading is going to help them in anything they decide to do in the future. It's going to help them. It's going to develop vocabulary, being able to talk, being able to learn things, you know. And this is why I find it so fascinating that more people are not into reading today. Because for me, especially reading like autobiographies, it's like you're reading someone's entire life of 80 years, all the lessons he's learned, all the mistakes he's made, he's condensed it into one book, and you're getting, it's like a cheat code. You're learning it in a month. And everything he's done, you can, okay, he did this mistake, let me not do that.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, you're finding it difficult to have a mentor in whatever field you're in. Like, let's say it's marketing. You can read a book on Steve Jobs and how he did something in his business, and you can learn so much from it, because that's basically your mentor.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting into his mind. But even in other aspects of life, like sometimes I just read books because I'm always reading 2 books at a time. One is fiction, one is non-fiction.
Okay.
Because sometimes if I'm reading about someone's biography, I'm learning about like Atomic Habits, for example, it can get a bit heavy. Sometimes I just want to relax. So I'll just read like some sort of fantasy novel or something like that, just to let me relax. So I'm always doing two books at a time. And I just sometimes I just escape into the book.
It's incredible. You really do like books, don't you? I don't read any fiction, but I am a fan. I'm always reading. There's always a book that I'm reading, or like I would have just finished reading. So I do like to have a good relationship with books as well. I think it's so important. You learn so much. Sometimes what it does is you don't necessarily benefit directly from what the book is saying, but by listening, it opens your mind up, and then you're thinking about things while you're like listening to an audiobook, for example. So that helps. If you're reading, as you're reading it, even though you're reading the words, your mind wanders off, but that's a fun time. You let your mind wander. It's like because sometimes when you're thinking about something directly, it doesn't work. And then you read a book, and then your mind almost like opens up, like, and you're just having all these thoughts and ideas and inspirations, and you don't realize that like you're reading the book. So
I feel like Eesa's behavior and just his way of thinking changed when he started reading.
Really?
Yeah, so much, like just the things he wanted to watch was different. So he's like, oh Dad, can we watch a documentary on how Dubai was created? So there's this documentary on Amazon Prime, and it just talks about over the last 50, 60 years, how it's changed so much. And there was another one on Burj Khalifa and how it's created, and they had pillars and all these other things. Or they don't have a sewage system in Burj Khalifa. So when they created it, the architects, they thought of everything, but they didn't think about how the sewage was going to be disposed of. So once a week, and this is what Eesa told me, once a week, there's a massive line of trucks you'll see in downtown. They just come to collect the sewage, and then they'll go to the desert and they'll dump it.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't know that. And I was just like, wow. I had to fact check it to make sure it was like, yeah, it's true. And now he's like, so initially we were reading stories, and now he's moving into like learning about different types of planes and how they work and engine systems. And he tells me a lot of facts about planes, but I met a brother in the mosque, and he knows so much about like planes. And he was just talking about in the Emirates, when you use Emirates when you fly, and the reference is always EK. So he was just like, the reason why it's EK is because when Emirates was first established, the Pakistan aviation,
Pakistan International Airlines,
they were just like the top in the game. So that's why the Sheikh went to them and said, look, give us help us like to establish a aviation industry in Dubai. And they lent some planes, so they rented it. And he said, to establish our relationship and to make sure it's solidified, E stands for Emirates and K was Karachi, because that was the first flight that came out. So it'll always be EK.
That's true.
And he mentioned something else about taxes. So if a flight comes from from Pakistan to the UAE, or maybe it's just Dubai, there's no tax on that.
Really?
Yeah. And he gave me
Wow.
other facts. I'm giving these tidbits, and then Eesa was like, "Wow, really?" And he's like, "We found it
That's
so
incredible,
interesting."
bro.
But it's just because
It's
when
nice
he's
to
reading
lean
that,
into like the passions that your children have, isn't it? I haven't got to that stage yet where they're interested in anything substantial. But like if like Issa's into planes, it'd be incredible just to like, while he is into planes, taking him to like an aviation museum.
I've been looking for that. So I've got a few friends that work in the aviation industry, but they don't have like, I wouldn't just visit a plane and go inside it when it's not moving and have a look around and this kind of thing. One of his biggest regrets was when he went, I think it was last year, they were flying back from the UK and they were literally outside the cockpit. And the air hostess said, "Look, go inside and go meet the pilot." And I think he was just too shy at the time, but he always mentions, "I wish I went. I wish I went." Like even a year afterwards, is that I wish I went, which is good because I'm liking this trajectory because for about the first 2-3 years, he wanted to be a dustbin man when he was younger, and he kept just talking about it all the time. Like, you remember this dustbin? This is how it works. And every Wednesday when the dustbin came, he used to wait outside the window.
It's going in the right direction. My oldest right now wants to be an astronaut, so there's a long way to go.
Yeah. So Elon Musk says that when it comes to parenting and the trajectory of their life in terms of careers, is as parents, you need to have a Venn diagram of what they're good at in one side, what they're proficient in, and the second is what their interest or passion is, and you to marry the two. So as you get older, you'll realize what your kids are into and what they're good at and what their skills are, and is there a way for you to merge it into one? And I very much follow like your philosophy, yours and Kaya's, in terms of when they're older in their careers, I want them to work for themselves. That's my goal. If they decide to go to university and that's what their passion is, or there's an industry that they can only go to university to get into, then that's fine. But
that's incredible.
That's my goal. But when I was younger, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, so like because it's not necessarily like the standard for security, but if you can unlock it, and in this day and age, this is the best day and age to do it because of the digital sphere that we're in right now. If you can do it, it's the best life in the world because you have freedom. The reason my dad was always so present was because he's always worked for himself. And so when it was important, he was there at the important stuff. He'd come to my hockey games and stuff like that. He'd pick me up and drop me to boxing. And these things, when I remember them now, and it was because he didn't have somebody who told him what time he had to clock in and clock out. And then as Muslims, bro, you can go to the masjid 5 times a day. You can choose your environment, so you don't have to work in environments that are not appropriate for a Muslim, and so on and so forth, right? So yeah, I'm completely with you on that regard. In that regard, and your rizq is written for you, bro. You know what I mean?
That's it. Just on a side note, a few episodes ago, I met this brother, and he takes his kids. His daughter actually goes to a school of memorization in Dubai. It's called Bilal Ibn Rabah, and it's completely free, sponsored by the government. They'll go in the morning, come back at 12, and their sole focus is just memorizing the Qur'an.
Wow.
And on average, they'll do it in about 2 years.
Wow. How old do you have to be?
She is in primary school. It's quite young. Can't remember exactly how old, but about 7, 8, 9, that kind of age. And I thought it was amazing because I know a lot of more parents I'm seeing where the kids are excelling academically in school, and then just before year 5, they'll take them out. They'll go his class for 2 years. Just before they finish year 8, or they finish year 7, they're back in school. And it's not like they don't supplement the knowledge outside of that, because they're only going to school 7 till 12. But at 12 o'clock, they're home. So even the transport, uniform, everything the government pays for. And from 12 till like 3, they can study whatever else they want. Wow. I did a lot of home tuition in the UK, and the homeschoolers, they were just so far in front, or in terms of the other kids in school. So in year 11, you take your GCSEs. I had kids in year 7, 8 memorizing the Qur'an, but they're doing GCSE, English, Math, Science, and they're getting straight A's or 9s right now. Wow. And they're in year 7 and 8. Incredible. And they're doing it. And I've always held that there must be some science behind it, but when you're memorizing the Qur'an, I feel like it just sharpens your mind.
Oh, bro, 100%. Yeah,
to 100%. A different level. And I think that, I'm not sure why I mentioned that. But
I'm doing my kids' hifz with them right now. Well, mainly my older one, right? My 4-year-old is not ready yet.
What is he memorizing?
Just Amma at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, I realized that the kids are like sponges, and you yourself just have to have the effort and energy. Like there's some days where I'm like, oh, like, you know what? We'll do a lesson tomorrow instead of today. And it's those days make a difference because then he forgets more and stuff like that. But they're just like sponges, man. Like, because they're not poisoned with all the stuff that we've like grown, like, you know, over the years, like, you know, consumed. And so at such a pure age, so it's so useful, bro. I started at when my son turned 4, my 5-year-old, I started his hifz journey, but in a really light way, because I was like just preparing him until he reached 5. And then when he reached 5, I was like, all right, cool, regimented system, this is what we're doing.
But can he read it? Is he reading, or he's listening?
He's listening. He can, I suppose, read bits, because he learns reading at nursery. So he's in FS2.
I'm just thinking, am I doing it the wrong around? Because right now, I taught him how to read with Tajweed, and I can read looking in.
That's incredible.
And then now we're trying to memorize.
So the reason I chose to memorize first, I don't know what the right way is.
Okay.
The reason I chose to memorize first is because one of the ustads here, who I'm kind of like modeling what he did with his children, and he basically said, with your kids, because they like brains are like sponges, just get the Qur'an in their head. Just like get them to memorize it as fast as possible, as young as possible. Then you can worry about everything else that can be taught. But as each year goes, it becomes harder and harder to memorize the Qur'an. For us to memorize the Qur'an now, it's a lot more difficult than if we were like 10 years old trying to memorize the Qur'an, right? But if you wanted to learn how to read Arabic right now, you could learn, you know, when I learned how to read Qur'an when I was 21. I didn't know how to read Alif Ba Ta before then, maybe 22. But then I learned in a few months, right? So you can do, so I'm following that method. Just like, look, memorize, you know, even if it takes a few years, he can learn to read very easily at any age. So that's like the method that I'm going down.
Got 2 more questions for you.
Go ahead.
The first is a bit of a controversial one.
Okay.
And I think I know your answer anyway, but I want to try to argue the other side as
Fine.
well, is kids in the mosque. What do you think about that? Because when I've come from Leicester, there were certain times where you know that you're not allowed to bring kids in the mosque, and there'd be made announcements at the end saying, please don't bring your kids to Salah, etc. And there were rationale behind it. But I think, I didn't agree with it. Because, and my rationale is that if they don't enjoy coming to the mosque at a young age, then when they're older, they're not going to want to come.
Okay.
And I probably quote this wrong, but there was this imam, and I believe it was a Turkish imam, that said that we should be worried for the next generation if the masajid are not filled with the laughter of children.
Yeah.
And that really stuck with me, because they do make noise and they'll laugh, but if they don't enjoy going, like now, like me and you were talking about, we use it as a punishment that they can't go to the mosque.
Yeah.
Just like they're crying and they say please, and I want that, because they love going, and then after they'll write like a card for the imam on Eid day, or they'll give gifts, and they just love going. But in Leicester, there were times where we were told not to, or there's a bit of a stigma attached to bringing the kids to the mosque. What's your thoughts on that?
You're going to be surprised by my answer. So I actually just created a video about this last week for Instagram, and I haven't posted it yet because I've sent it to Sheikh Muhammad Tim Humble. I want him to like approve the video before I post it. I am against bringing your kids to the masjid.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think you should bring your kids to the masjid unless they're ready, they don't disturb the Jama'ah. Because it is not compulsory for children to go to the masjid, but it is or there's, you know, quite a strong opinion that it is compulsory for a man to pray in the masjid. Or even if you don't look at the compulsory perspective, just the fact that the man is praying his compulsory salah, his fard salah, he has to be in khushu' for his salah. So if bringing your kids to the mosque is going to disturb the khushu' of the jama'ah, it's net negative for the ummah, right? And for that jama'ah, you're distracting too many people. So, so that doesn't mean don't bring your kids. It means don't bring them until they're ready. What age are they ready? Well, it differs. My 3-year-old comes to the masjid now, right? But my 5-year-old, when he was 3, he wasn't allowed because he would disturb the jama'ah. So it's not based on the age. I think it's based on if they can come to the masjid. I think, yes, it's good to encourage your children to come to the masjid so they can see the masjid. But as long as they don't disturb the jama'ah. Now both my kids, as you've seen, and your kids as well, they can come to the masjid and they can either, my younger one just sits at the back quietly, my older one prays next to me. And so because they're not disturbing the jama'ah, they're allowed to come. But like I told you, when my 3-year-old was like 2, I brought him. It was a night we had rebased, and for like 3 months I banned him. You can't come to the masjid. Then I'll test it again. So by default, I think if they're going, the answer is if they're disturbing the jama'ah, that's the bigger evil there. And you know, I've actually been in circles numerous times where somebody has asked this to a person of knowledge, and the person of knowledge have always given the same answer, which is that if they're going to disturb the jama'ah, don't take them. And I remember one particular time I was in this scenario. The brother goes to the sheikh, but I want my child to love the masjid. And he said there's other ways. He said the fact that you're so concerned about your child loving the masjid means that's a beautiful sign. That means that he probably will love the masjid because of how concerned you are about that. But right now there's other ways of doing it. Like, for example, when you drive past the masjid, you say, you know, when Baba leaves the house 5 times a day, this is where I come to and it's so much fun. I can't wait to bring you when you're older. And then he goes that attachment. He's excited to go. And then, you know, if he starts going to masjid when he's 6, that's not a bad thing at all. You can still start to love the masjid at 6 just because you're not taking them when they're 3. So personally, it's case by case. Like with your kids, you know, along Barik, they behave in the masjid. Yeah. If they're disturbing the Jama'ah, I think that, it's a net negative.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that was what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Because even when the kids are younger and they're making little noises, your khushu's gone, your trail of thought is gone, what am I doing? Or
and imagine the other brothers in the masjid as well. And for them, it's fard to pray salah, right?
No, I agree there.
Yeah.
I think as long as they're not making a sound, then it's fine.
Yeah. So I think there's validity, like you know, in the masajid, when like in Ramadan time, one of my local mosques, they say like, you know, if your kid's not 6, don't bring him. I think there's validity to that. So yeah.
Last question. So you know how a lot of these podcasts, they have closing traditions.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of one.
Okay.
So right now I'm just testing different.
You're testing different ones, right? I'll be your your guinea pig.
So, a closing tradition on the podcast then would be leaving a message for your parents or your kids. So let's say they're older. Let's say now your older son is 18 and is listening to this.
Okay.
Well, what message would you?
By the way, that's incredible tradition. That's
Really?
good. I like that. Yeah.
Okay.
You should do that.
Kids or parents? Which one would you give a message? Would it be kids? Kids would be better,
I think
right?
kids when they're 18 is really nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
But it went down like a really dark one because the first guest said, "Okay, imagine you're dead."
Yeah.
And he was getting really emotional. I said, "No, you're not dead."
No, you worded it perfectly now this time.
Yeah, I think if he's 18, what message would you give? If he's listening to this?
I would say to him or them, when in doubt, just ask yourself the question, what's more pleasing to Allah? And that's your answer, you know? When in doubt and you don't know what decision to make. I think if you do that, that's what, you know, if I wasn't around and you decided to choose the option that was more pleasing to Allah, you're by default choosing the option that I would have been the happiest for you to have chosen.
You can't go wrong with that decision, right?
Yeah.
Really good message.
Thank you so much, bro. This has been really nice, but honestly, I've been a guest on a fair few podcasts and I prefer being the host. And this has been probably my most enjoyable one, and because I felt the most relaxed. So you've done a great job at hosting, bro.
Really appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
No worries, take care.